Okay, well, good to see everybody. This is our second informational webinar about the hackathon. So glad we got a lot of people on the call today. We had one before the holidays as well. Not as heavily attended, so I'm glad to see more people on this call. But I presume you're here because you're interested in participating in our hackathon, which is going to be happening on January 27th, coming up in a few weeks now. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm with the Tampa Bay Estuary program, and we've never had a hackathon before, but I like to think I bring a bit of data science to the program, and this is kind of our attempt to sort of crowdsource some external partners to assist in some of our efforts to build our data science workflows and fill some indicator gaps about our reporting products. So, of course, I'll explain a bit more about what that means. And this is informal, so if you have any questions about anything that I'm talking about today, feel free to interrupt me at any time. I don't think it'll take too long to get through these slides, so we can, of course, answer questions at the end. But this is for you all. I know what's going to happen, but I want you to understand what's going to happen as well. So if any of this is unclear or I haven't answered your questions, feel free to chime in, and I'm happy to answer them. So this is designed for you all. This hackathon is open to anybody that has an interest. We have a web page that has all this information in detail that I'm going to talk about today in this webinar. So if anything that I talk about is unclear, hopefully that's explained in more detail on the web page. But obviously, as I just said, you can ask questions today and I can answer them to the best of my abilities. It's going to be at the Tampa River Center, which is downtown Tampa on the west side of the river. Really nice facility. We did a site visit a couple weeks ago and checked it out. It's going to, for the most part, have everything we need to have a successful hackathon. But you are required to be there in person, so this is an in-person event. And it will be the 27th, which is a Monday. So I guess that would be 2 weeks from, no, 3 weeks from Monday this week. And it's going to be a whole day event, 9 to 5 p.m. We'll talk about what the schedule is going to look like, but you are expected to be there in person for that whole time. So the goal of this, as I said at the beginning, is to kind of outsource some partners to help us fill an indicator gap that we have as a program. So the intent is that each team is going to pick a data set that they're going to work with or data sets to develop a reporting workflow that speaks to some aspect about bay health that assists us as a program, the estuary program, in managing the bay. And I'll explain more about what that means later, but that's the general call here. This is a competitive event, so there is hopefully some money on the line that will incentivize you to bring your best effort forward to develop this workflow. But there is going to be a winning team at the end that will be selected through a scoring rubric that then will be invited into contract with us after the hackathon to more fully develop that workflow that was conceptualized during the hackathon. I'll explain more about what that scoring process looks like, how to be competitive, and all that. Anybody can participate, as I said. It's not just coders. Obviously, if your team, if you're signing up as a team or you bring a team to the event, having a coder is a wise idea. But we're looking for anybody that has an interest in bay management. And that could be anybody from just an individual to an organization you represent, whether that's a public agency, a private entity, whatever. So we're sort of casting a wide net here for who we want to participate. But really the only requirement is you have to have some level of interest in and Tampa Bay, and how we think about managing that as an environmental resource. Um, if you are, well, actually, everybody's going to be in a team. But if you are registering as an individual, you could have, a different skill set or bring a skill set to the team. Or if you're getting a team together, you want to think about what a competitive team might look like. And so, as I said, having somebody or several individuals on that team that can code is good, but not a requirement to be a part of a team. So we're also looking for subject matter experts. So, for example, if you pick a particular data set, and say it's like birds or marine mammals or something about human health or something like that, it might be good to have someone on your team that knows a little bit about that particular data set. Also, people that are sort of big picture thinkers that can sort of conceptualize how the pieces fit together from data set to information, that's also a good idea. So take home point here is that having a team that has a variety of expertise to speak to the workflow or the data set that you're looking at would be good. And coders is sort of a general term as well. So, coding entails a lot of different skill sets, and having a well-rounded skill set is good, but coding could speak to different aspects of the workflow for taking the data to information, from just synthesizing different data sets or synthesizing aspects of one data set, or having skills towards developing some sort of reporting product around that data set, like developing a dashboard or having sort of a good understanding of how visualization practices can support reporting on a particular data set, that sort of thing. So again, a wide net there with coding skills. As I've been saying, you can register as a team or as an individual. We've had several folks sign up already. It's kind of been a mix of teams as well as individuals. When you do fill out the registration form, if you are signing up as a team, we're basically considering that the person that registers as the team is going to be the team captain. And you're going to, when you fill out the registration, basically lay out the team members that are going to be part of your team. And so those team members, you can figure out who that's going to be. But if you don't have team members, essentially people that are going to be, or that are signing up as individuals, will be assigned to your team, or individuals will be grouped together as a single team based on skill sets, and how we think, teams could be combined, or individuals could be combined into a team to create something that's competitive. We had basically a requirement that the minimum team size is 5. Maximum team size of 10. And as I said, to sort of get that minimum or reach that maximum, individuals that sign up as individuals are going to be assigned to teams. And we have had some questions about, for example, if you sign up as a team that has less than 5, what happens if we have individuals assigned to our team, but our team represents one organization or one entity? Because if you win, you're going to have to decide basically how that funding gets dispersed amongst your team members. And if you want that funding to go solely to your organization, then we discussed this yesterday. I think we decided that if you do not want anybody else, an individual outside of your entity, assigned to your team, let us know. If that creates problems for how the funding could be dispersed, we can make that exception. So that's sort of a new thing that we decided yesterday. So get in touch with me. My email is on the website, or just let me know now, whatever your preference is. We can make that allowance. So we do anticipate having some teams of less than 5, if that is your preference. Now, as I said, the teams are going to focus on a particular data set or data sets that speak to an indicator subject. And what that means basically is that, as a program, we report to our partners, to Florida DEP, to EPA, on different aspects of Bay Health. And that's a very general concept of what Bay Health means. But our core reporting components to date consist of various aspects of water quality, reporting on status and trends of different habitats in the bay, fisheries, wildlife, all that stuff. And so we've checked off a lot of different boxes for a lot of different indicator subjects, but there are definitely several where historically we haven't done a good job on reporting on them. And so in most cases, there are data sets available that could be used, but we just haven't really synthesized that into a product that's useful to distill that information that conveys information on status and trends of the resource. And so this is sort of our short list here of eligible indicator subjects that we think would be high priority for developing some kind of reporting workflow. And so wildlife, we do currently report on different aspects of wildlife, but the things I have listed here, we don't report on, but we know there's data available. So birds, whether that's shorebirds or migratory birds or land birds, sea turtles, terrestrial turtles, marine mammals, amphibians, frogs, for example, we know there's a huge gap there, but a lot of data available. Invasive species is another one that we know is of interest. What that means from data to product in terms of how that can support kind of actionable information for managers. We'll leave that up to teams to decide for something like invasive species, but that's another thing that's ripe for reporting. And then more on the, moving from the environmental side to the human side, we care about our constituents in our watershed, and there's various aspects about human health and well-being where there's a lot of different data sets we know are available that could support that. So, how do people interact with the bay? What is their, experience there? What it means for their well-being? Going to human health, like red tide, for example, has human health implications. There might be something there to inform our understanding. If you want a sense of what we've already reported on or what we have in existing products, you can go to our website, tbep.org. I can actually go to that at the end to show you some of our existing products, but we're not limiting eligible subjects to this particular list. These are just sort of, low hanging fruit that we think people can report on. So if you can find something that we've not reported on, that's also eligible. And to get a sense of that, you can look at our website, but also our what we call our CCMP, which is our Comprehensive Conservation Management Plan. This is kind of like a large guiding document that every estuary program creates that's sort of a laundry list of all of our priorities as a program, ranging from the environment to human health to public education, everything there. So you can look at that and sort of see if, there's a gap that might need to be filled and could maybe give you some other ideas beyond this list that we have here. Um, and to sort of further help you in your quest for eligible indicators and data sets, we have this list that we've put together that should get you started if you have a team or you're thinking about putting a team together that speak to a lot of those priority subjects that I've described in the last slide. I will make this list available to everybody that's registered prior to the hackathon. So you have links to this, but this is just sort of an inventory of, what is the subject in the data set that could apply to that subject. So what is the source you're going to go to speak to that, the state of that indicator. And so these are all publicly available data sets. That is kind of a requirement for developing this workflow. The data should be accessible. And that is keeping in mind with some of our principles we use as a program around open science and developing a workflow around information that is accessible and findable and all that. Because, once this workflow is developed, we want to, update it in the future so that we have a product that can be reported on year to year so we can understand how it's changing over time in response to just, pressures or management actions that might be put in place to protect that resource. Now, there might be some data sets available that aren't necessarily accessible online, but we know people have them and they might be willing to share them if you ask them. Those are also eligible. And the idea there being that if, some product is developed around that data set, it might motivate, the maintainer of that data set to make it available so that, we can further develop and report on that in the future. So that's kind of why we're saying that, if it's not available online, but if you ask somebody for it, that's also okay. But preference should be towards these data sets that are already publicly available and can be mined for developing some kind of workflow. Now, as a team, we're strongly encouraging people to bring their data sets to the hackathon. So, whatever you decide upon as an eligible indicator subject, whatever data set or data sets you want to use to report on that, that should be downloaded and brought to the hackathon on a flash drive on your computer and shared with people in your team that are going to be working with that data set during the hackathon. The idea there being that internet access we do have at the venue, but we're told that it is limited in the sense that I think it will. They tell us it will tap out at about essentially 40 people online at once, 40. So it sounds, I'm fully anticipating internet access, but I cannot guarantee it, and so that's why I'm telling people to bring this data set with them to the hackathon. As far as timeline, as I said, the event is about just under 3 weeks away. We opened registration a couple months ago, and we're going to close the registration on the 22nd. So I think about 2 weeks from today, you have 2 weeks to decide if you want to participate, which should be plenty of time. And I'm thinking that after this webinar, people will sort of decide if they want to participate. Once you are registered, we'll, of course, send out all relevant information to you about logistics the day of, what to expect, where to park, how to, prepare all that stuff. And more or less, a lot of the content in this webinar will be reiterated in that email. And final team assignments will be emailed to team captains or individuals prior to the event so that you know who's on your team and you can coordinate amongst each other. Now, the day of the hackathon, like I said, it runs 9 to 5. That will actually be the duration of the hacking period. But we're going to be there probably at 7 a.m. setting up, but you can show up as a team or as an individual on a team. Starting at 8 a.m., we'll have sign in, all that fun stuff. And then we'll start promptly at 9. I'll give a little welcome and overview of what to expect for the day, provide some more, I guess, motivation or motivating examples of what an indicator workflow looks like, how to be competitive, and sort of remind everybody about how the scoring process is going to work at the end. So you'll be hacking all day. We'll have lunch provided sort of throughout a 3-hour window, so you can go get it whenever you're able to do so. And then at 4 o'clock, that's when all teams stop. Okay. And then from 4 to 5, this is when the scoring happens. So we're going to actually give each team, depending on how many teams we have, it might be more time, but we were initially thinking that each team is going to have 5 minutes to present their workflow to a panel of judges. Okay. And so this is your time to present your workflow. We have a presentation template available that every team is required to use. But you're basically going to explain what you've developed during the event and make a pitch for why, we should fund this team after the hackathon to fully develop the workflow. So each team will have 5 minutes. Make sure, of course, your presentation is done prior to 4 o'clock. Because you're just going to have a limited amount of time to show what you've created. And then when every team is presented there, whenever all the presentations are done, a panel of judges are going to deliberate on who we think should be the winner of the event. And throughout that time, hopefully deliberation won't take too long. But during that time, all teams are allowed to sort of take a breath, whatever. and we'll reconvene at the latest 6 p.m. I'm thinking it'll be sooner, but we're anticipating it no later than 6 o'clock. The winner will be announced, and then you're free to go. There is going to be an optional off-site social. It's up to you if you want to join. We haven't, reserved the space yet, but if you want to network later or just share with us your experience, we're going to have an off-site social at Godin Kitchen and Bar, which is a short 5-minute walk from the River Center. So feel free to join us for that if you like. Um, So in this slide and the next, I'm going to explain what we are going to provide to you at the event and what you as a team and your team members need to bring at the event. So each, the venue space is quite large. We can actually have up to 120 people there. I don't think we're going to reach that number, so there should be plenty of space, but each team is going to have 1 to 2 tables set up with chairs spaced around. That's going to be your working space for the day. As I said, Wi-Fi will be available, but please sort of plan for um, the potential for it not working very well. I think it will work, but I can't promise that. So as I said, bring the data set you're going to work on a flash drive, have the capacity to share materials among team members through external drives, or if you want, definitely you can set up a mobile hotspot for your phone so you can share information more easily amongst computers if you like. We will provide a projector and screen for the final presentations, as well as the initial presentation in the beginning, where I'll talk about how the day is going to look and sort of what we expect. And each team is going to be provided with sort of a large flip book, those big flip pads with big pieces of paper you can turn over and peel off, as well as writing utensils, so you can sort of use that as a brainstorming tool or just sort of other sort of planning that's not strictly computer based. And we have stickers. So if you're not compelled to come yet, hopefully stickers will incentivize you to come to the event. This is our little hexagonal logo that I had in the beginning that, is your nice little take-home prize. Obviously, you as a team, make sure once you have your team assembled that everybody shows up to the event. That's obviously pretty important. As I said, there should be one team captain. If you're registering a team, whoever registers on our Google form is the designated team captain. So you'll be responsible for communicating with your team members and making sure everybody is aware of what's going to happen at the event and what indicator and data set you're using. Bring your laptop, bring your chargers. If you're not a coder or don't plan on bringing or using a computer, that's fine. But obviously, this is a hacking or coding event, so make sure you bring the necessary hardware to do that. We cannot provide extension cords. That's just not in the budget. So whatever IT equipment, hardware you're bringing, make sure there are sufficient extension cords to plug them in for the duration of the event. So, roughly 9-10 hours or so at the most. As I said, download the data set you plan on using, bring it. Ideally, every team member that's coming should have that on their computer, but if you don't, share that before with your team, make sure you can do that the day of the event through an external hard drive or something like that. Cell phones for Wi-Fi hotspots are a good idea as a backup, as I said. Any other hardware accessories you need to share information, HDMI cords, storage devices, we're not limiting what you can bring, so long as it supports your team. And the River Center is pretty strict about their policies for outside food and drink, so please do not bring any outside food or drink. We will have lunch provided so that, you'll be fed. But in terms of staying hydrated, there's 2 water fountains on site. So you can bring a water bottle, that's fine. Just, try to limit beverages and food that you bring from outside. Okay, so I've been saying a lot about indicator workflow reporting products without really describing what that means. I'm sure some of you have a sense of what it is, but others are probably, well, what the heck is he talking about? I'm going to try to explain what we as a program conceptualize or think about when we talk about workflows and reporting products, but it's essentially, what is the process from going from a raw data set to something that is actionable for an environmental resource manager or somebody that cares about the bay, or just informing the public. That could be another output from this. So we have, as I said, as a program, several existing workflows, and what that essentially is a informational pipeline from raw data to reporting products. So, for example, our water quality report card, that's available online. You can look at that and see what that looks like. But that is built on a pipeline that taps into a raw data set provided from our partners, where the data set is retrieved. There's a whole bunch of processes for distilling that information or summarizing it, and then that summarized information is portrayed in a way that is actionable or makes sense. Basically, distilling thousands of records of water quality into something that people can understand and use to manage the bay. So it's that whole workflow from data source to synthesizing or distilling that information and then reporting on it. What is the state of that resource? So what is the status? What is it currently telling us about the resource? What is the historical trend of that resource? Anything like that. So we want to know the condition, how it's trending, all that fun stuff. Um, and the presentation template at the end that is going to be provided to each team has sort of placeholder boxes in this workflow where you have a chance to explain to us what steps of this workflow your team has conceptualized or partially developed to get us from raw data to actionable information. In more detail, this is an example that I often describe when I talk about our reporting workflows during talks or whatever. But this is more or less the same kind of process that I showed in the last slide, just with a little more detail, using some of the tools that we have adopted as a program, many of which kind of apply to or speak to some of the open science principles we care about. So this, represents essentially you as a team, your computer working locally, how you would pull in an external data source, whether it's through an API or you're writing some code to download it from the source, or you have to retrieve it manually. That's also fine. But once you have access to that data set, what is your open source toolkit you're using to summarize or distill that information? And so this is just a subset of some of the open source tools we use. We're a big R house. It's great if you use R, you don't have to for this, but these should be open source tools. So please try to limit your use of proprietary tool sets that do require like license fees or that aren't otherwise open. Once you have sort of your toolkit and workflow kind of worked out, this workflow should be transparent. It should be findable by others. It should be usable by others. And one tool that we use to do that is GitHub. So that's a code sharing platform where you can host your code online. Others can see it, can contribute to it if you want them to. There's, often documentation associated with the repository on GitHub. So it checks all of the boxes that we like to have checked for open science. We often, have our pipelines automated through, whether on a schedule or, triggered by some event. Um, you know, that's not an aspect of the workflow that I would expect to come out of this hackathon, but if your team comes up with something like that, great. But it's not, that's a level of detail that might be worked out, further on down the line if your team wins. But just to the point of, GitHub does provide these sorts of tools to sort of automate the workflow once it's developed. And those are nice features we like to have because it sort of, allows us to frees up our time for other things. And then ultimately, whenever that workflow is finished, it leads to something that is actionable, understandable, reporting on status and trends of the resource. And so a product that comes out of the workflow could be a report card, or, various visualization tools that distill that information in a way that's understandable. We're we've built a lot of shiny dashboards as a program that allow end users to engage with the data in a way that's a lot more interactive than just saying, here's a static graphic. So again, this is just sort of giving you an idea of what a reporting product could look like. So going from raw data all the way to making it, findable, discoverable, automated, to a product that has some management connotation behind it. As I said, we're an open source house, so whatever coders you have on your team, it's probably wise they have experience in some sort of open source coding language. The idea again there being that it's not behind a paywall, it's not something we have to sort of you know do pay essentially pay for. And that code should be, could be shared somewhere. GitHub is great, but there are other platforms as well. That's not a requirement, but something like Google Drive, if your team has, you know, um, created a shared space where you have documents on there that, you host your scripts there, or you have README files on there, or your data sets there. That's just another way to make that information available to a larger audience. It should be available to us, but we also want our partners to sort of understand that the workflow you've created can be explored further through this open platform. The input data, um, this isn't a requirement, but we do like the data sets you're using to be readable. In other words, like flat text files, like CSVs, Excel files are fine. But essentially, whatever the source data is, it shouldn't be in a proprietary format that can only be read by one particular type of software. Again, making it more broadly accessible. Um, I debated this last point about whether putting it on here because of the potential issues with internet access at the venue, but we're not prohibiting use of generative AI tools to support you in your development of that workflow. For example, I can, go to ChatGPT or some other tool and say, here's what the first, 6 rows of my data set look like. Can you write me some code to summarize it by some variable in that data set? That's fine. You could totally do that. To the extent that it makes the process during the hackathon more efficient, great, but it shouldn't be a component of the workflow when it's done. It's really more of a tool to help you develop the process during the hackathon. That's fine. I use it every day in my day-to-day job. But I do, understand what it's doing for the most part. It's just sort of taken away a lot of the TDM that's associated with building code from scratch. So, if you want to use that, great. Okay, how are teams going to be scored? So as I said at the end, each team by 4 o'clock will have a presentation ready to go. You're going to be presenting that in 5 minutes, very possible more than 5 minutes once I have a final team count, given the, however much time will take to fill up the last hour. But we are going to hold you to that, whatever that final time limit is. So make sure what you want to say is said within that window, because we're going to have to do a hard stop to make sure that all other teams have enough time to present their workflow. But you're going to be, the sole basis for scoring each team is going to be from that presentation. So when you present this work, you're going to be based on, or it's going to be scored on the technical aspects of the proposed workflow. In other words, like what is the IT infrastructure behind that, or what are the steps you're taking from raw data to reporting product? Is it in line with our open science principles? Is it reproducible? Is it shared in a space that's accessible, etc.? The next component is going to be a science-based aspect behind it. So, it's not just the data science component, but, is there some sort of understanding of how the indicator subject and reporting on it can support management of the resource in some way? So there should be some contextual information that is expressed in the workflow. And then finally, the presentation itself. So, are you communicating your work in a understandable way? Are you selling it to us? Essentially, you'll be graded on that. You can. This is on our website as well. The Hack the Bay website, the scoring rubric is linked there, but you can see in more detail what the different pieces are that go into the technical, scientific, and presentation aspects of the scoring. So um, just kind of know that you'll be graded on each one of these points. So when you're presenting your workflow, try to speak to each one of them. And I know that's very hard for 5 minutes. We're not expecting something completely polished, but obviously, if you want to be competitive, do your best to try to speak to each one of these aspects. Let's see. Yeah, so this is a intense event. We're not expecting a completed product at the end of this. So if it's not finished, not polished, fine. We're looking for, at the end of the day, a concept or a kernel of an idea that we think could be further developed if we contract with you, for the next year or so, however long we think it needs to take. So don't worry if it's not finished, but the core concepts of what you're trying to convey should be communicated during the presentation. And of course, what if you don't win? It's very likely that most of you won't win because we're only gonna have one winner. That's fine. You're still awesome. We really like the fact that you wanted to come out and at least hang out with us for a day and hopefully network with others. That's another advantage of this. This is your chance to sort of meet other people in the region with a shared interest in the Bay and shared interest in how data is used to inform management of the Bay. We won't steal your ideas. If you have a really cool idea that we don't fund, we're not gonna like rip you off and build something off of it after the fact. But just be aware though that this is a public event. If you have some really cool idea that you don't want to share with anybody, it's probably wise you don't come to the event because we can't guarantee that others won't steal your ideas. That's just out of our control. So just be aware of that. And if you're not funded, there's still other ways to work with us. This link goes to our website. It's essentially, a project idea, a project concept submission form that, is a more formal way to send your idea to us because we have other funding mechanisms, other funding avenues that could be explored should you wish to work with us. For example, we have the Tampa Bay Environmental Restoration Fund, which opened today for the next round of funding if you want to explore that. We have other ways to get funding to you. So don't be discouraged if you don't win. There are other ways to sort of work with us if you want to. And then finally, as you prepare for the hackathon, as you're getting your team together, it would probably be wise to look at some of these other resources to get a sense of how we think as a program in terms of how we use data to support our call for managing or supporting our partners for managing the Bay. This goes to our data visualization webpage that essentially is the front end for a lot of our reporting products that we currently have developed. So you can check that out. I'll put a link to these slides in the chat when I'm done talking so you all can get back to this. Then our data management SOP, which is really kind of a highly detailed document about our approach to managing and using data as a program. It goes into a lot more details about some of these workflows that I alluded to earlier. This is a link to a workshop we put together about open science in general, so to give you an idea of our thinking about how these principles sort of are ingrained into our program. Other things, this is an R package that I put together with the help of many other individuals that kind of operationalize a lot of the steps from raw data to information. So if you are curious about how we've actually implemented this through coding, you can check that out. And then finally, our CCMP, which is again that big plan, that sort of our guiding document of what we need to do as a program for making sure Tampa Bay is a healthy and a properly functioning ecosystem. Um, so with that, I've talked a lot, so I want to make sure I have time to answer questions that you all might have. If any of that was unclear, or if I didn't answer questions you have, this is your chance to chime in.
Marcus, this is Heather. Have you selected your judges yet?
Yes, I have three, maybe four total. So three of them are going to be external to, at least three or four are external to our program. In other words, they're not TBEP staff. And then the final judge is going to be one combined score from TBEP staff. And the judges are individuals that I've reached out to that are folks that are both subject matter experts in different indicators, but also have a knowledge about open science and open source tools. So they should be able to reasonably assess if a team checks the boxes for the scoring rubrics. That was my intent, and I think they'll be able to do that.
Hey, Marcus, it's Viviana.
Hey.
Thanks for that. I think you answered most of my questions with the presentation today, so I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. A couple of things. You said these slides are available on the hackathon website?
Yes. I think they're on the website, but for good measure, I'm going to drop them the link in the chat here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then more kind of a minor question, but maybe major. So I know lunch is going to be provided, and it sounds like the facility is pretty strict on bringing in food. Are there going to be vegan, vegetarian, or food allergy options as well? Or are we able to bring, if somebody has those concerns, be able to bring that in?
Yeah. Good question. So the caterer is so the Tampa River Center has a list of caterers that we're allowed to contract with. And the one we've selected, if you go to the registration, there's options for your food preference. And I think there's two meat options for sandwiches, and there's one vegan. I don't know if it's gluten-free. I don't think it is, but you can also opt not to go with our meal. Yeah, that's a tough one. I want to be respectful of the policies of the River Center. So on paper, I'm telling you can't, but if somebody does,
Might be a consideration in that
yeah,
case.
yeah.
Okay, no,
And
thanks.
the venue is close to downtown, and there's a lot of restaurants nearby. And granted, you're there from 9 to 5, possibly longer. So if you need a break, you need to leave. That totally fine, totally up to you if you want to walk somewhere. It's just that the River Center is pretty strict with outside food and beverage. So
Understood. Understood. And is there a fee to register? I don't know
nope,
if you covered that. No fee.
nope.
Okay. That was it. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, hope you guys can join.
Marcus,
Yeah.
hey, good morning.
Yeah, hey Jennifer, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks again for organizing in this presentation. Quick question, if we're already registered as an individual, now that we've seen your presentation and some of the choices for focus areas and data sets, can we re-register with indicating our preference? And part two, when will individuals be assigned to teams?
Yeah, so the preferences you've put in on the registration for indicator subjects, those are more just a guide for me when I am putting individuals into teams. Like if there's 5 individuals that register and really care a lot about birds, they're all going to go on the same team. it's not gonna, that's not gonna require you to focus on that indicator data set. Like I said, it's just a guide to try to match people with, like-minded preferences. Yeah, so anything you've entered there is more just for my information. But if you really want to re-register, I can manually remove you and you can change your options. And then your second question about when will you know what teams you're in? I'm hoping to have, or I definitely will have that finalized the week prior to the hackathon. So the week of the 20th, I'll be sending out emails to people no later than probably Thursday. And I know that's kind of cutting it close, but I want to make sure because registration closes on the 22nd. And I want to make sure if people are on the fence, they have time to put a team together if they want. So it'll be somewhat last minute, but once I have those teams um, put together, I'll be emailing each team individually saying, here's who is on your team. These are your team members. And then, it's up to you all how you want to work prior to the event to make sure you're ready to go. And like I said, if it's a team that's already registered as such, one email will go out to the team captain and the team because there's no there was no box to say this is the email contacts for everybody on my team. It was just these are the team members. If they put it there in that extra box, great, but I'm only going to be emailing the team member. If it's an individual, I have contacts for every single individual. And if you're put in the team of individuals, that email will go out to everybody and you all can decide who the team captain is going to be.
And do you anticipate assigning individuals to existing teams, or more like you'll get individuals together into teams?
Um, The former, that was the original idea. Because I wanted each team to have, enough people to where, there's a lot of different viewpoints and perspectives and, creative juices flowing. So that's my priority is if teams have less than five, I'm going to put individuals into the team. But like I said, if you register it as a team and you do not want outside people on your team, for example, if you win, you want all the funding to go to your organization, that's okay too. Just let me know if that is your preference. Send me an email and I can make sure not to add people to your team.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep. Arjun, you had your hand up.
And I did. Thank you for hosting the webinar. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And answered a lot of my questions as well. Pretty simple, kind of menial questions. First is, do you have a preference of like Python versus R? That was a question.
Well, I'm an R person, so my personal preferences are, but this is open to any open source programming language. It's not gonna penalize you in any way if you use Python or something else. I'm making it openly fair to all open source languages.
Okay. And well, I'll ignore that one. Then they're just kind of silly questions other than that. Coffee. Can we bring coffee?
That's a concern of mine. I'm gonna say please don't bring any outside drinks or beverages, but
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna be checking. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. What if I have a team member that cannot stay for the full event? So yeah.
I think that's okay. Really, as long as there's at least one, I haven't even thought about that, but I'm thinking at least one person obviously needs to be there at the end to give the presentation. Um, you know, uh, yeah, so nobody's required to stay the whole time. I mean, if you sit there 2 hours and you're like, I hate this, you can leave. We're not going to lock the doors. But if it helps your team to have everybody there at the end, during the deliberation, the judges may have questions, and if somebody from your team was there that was really instrumental in the process, but they've left, it's going to be a detriment to your team if we have to ask you a particular question about what they've done. But I don't see that as being a huge problem. There's no requirement to stay the whole time. But obviously, if you've invested effort into this, having at least one person there at the end to give the presentation is probably the minimum requirement there.
Yeah, he's got a family. It's a family thing, and I don't know much about it. But anyways,
Fair enough.
well, do you have an idea of kind of how many teams? Obviously people haven't fully signed up, but you're talking like 20 teams. Do you have any rough idea?
Yeah, another good question. So we were planning for a maximum of 12 teams. I'll tell you right now, we're not going to get near that. We have there's good interest in this event, but it's not approaching, what we were maximally hoping for. Right now, I think we have enough for about probably 4 or 5 teams. But I'm expecting a lot more people to sign up after this webinar. So I would say between 5 to 10 teams.
Okay.
Now, obviously, the fewer teams there are, the less competition there is. Not to demotivate people from attending, but that's a plus.
Okay, cool. I think that I think about covers my kind of silly question. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Um, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but back to Jennifer's question about individuals and teams. When I do assign individuals to teams, if there's for whatever reason you're not happy with the team assignment, we can reshuffle as needed, depending on, um, I guess, our ability to work with the number of people we're putting in teams. So if, don't feel like your assignment is finalized, it just needs to be finalized the day of the event, because we're going to have you're going to sign in when you get there, but we're going to have a list of all of the teams so we know who showed up. That way, we know, if we need to, well, we are going to start on time, but we want to know, basically that people that said they're going to be there are actually there, and, people aren't showing up that haven't registered, basically. Let's see. Question in the chat. Should we expect a confirmation email once we sign up? No. Sorry, that we're using Google Forms, and as far as I know, Google Forms does not allow confirmation emails on sign up. If you have a question about uh, your certainty of whether you signed up or not, you can just email me and I'll let you know. Yeah, I'm always happy to answer emails about this. So. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, well, there's 20 plus people on this call, so I fully expect 20 plus new registrations within the hour. So cross my fingers there. Appreciate everybody being on the call today. I think it's going to be a fun event. We never done it before, so at the very least, it's going to be an opportunity to network with folks. So, oh yes, a question from Raymond.
Hi. Yeah. Sorry. I'm pretty sure I signed up for the event, but aside from just like the confirmation email for the informational session, I haven't really received any other email regarding like that I am fully registered. So just a little confused about that part.
Yeah, I'll check to see if you're registered, and yeah, there haven't been any emails going out to anybody that's registered yet.
Oh,
It's just been our broad email blast to our different listservs just to notify people that this is happening and all that. So I'll check to see if you're registered. Anybody else that wants that confirmation, feel free to reach out to me. I will, like I said, the week of the 20th, send an email to all groups. So if you registered and you don't receive an email by Friday, the 24th at the latest, let me know and I'll make sure that you get signed up, or you're added to the list. Okay.
cool. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, Rose O'Donovan. Let's see, I'll check Rose O'Donovan too. Okay. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for attending, and hopefully we'll see you on the 27th. Yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Well,
Thanks,
thanks for
Marcus.
putting it together. Oh.
Thank you.